Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the Utility Safety and Environment Committee meeting. Mr. Bruner has a couple of comments before we begin.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. I just want to note for the record that on July 1st, the state order allowing us to meet remotely via Zoom or electronic means expired. We do have Mrs. Davis, who is on the line in Zoom tonight. I want to make it clear for the record that she will not count towards the quorum, nor will she be able to cast a vote since she is here remotely. She can participate in any discussion or deliberation, but she cannot cast a vote. I do note for the record that we appear to have a quorum of the committee present physically in person, so we are good to proceed, Mrs. Mitchell, when you're ready, but I did want to make that clear for the record as to the ability of that absent council person to vote. She is counted as absent even though she can discuss.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bruning. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the June 9th, 2021 Utilities Committee meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Keys, second by Mrs. Simmons. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next item is the matter of authorizing the mayor to advertise for and award a contract for the East Park Pavilion project for installing and concrete work. Mrs. Reardon, please.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So this is we already have the pavilion over there. It has been purchased. It was purchased last year. This is to install it and to do some of the concrete work around it. So just a little bit of a backstory. There was a PO that was given for this work last year to the same company that did the bathroom, but we have decided as a city with engineering that we no longer would like that contractor to do the work. So some of the pricing that I got is over the $50,000, so it will need to go out to bid. So the money is already appropriated. It's just going to be going to a different contractor, and we're going to go through the bid process.
Mrs. Reardon. Are there any questions for Mrs. Reardon at all? Mr. Oswald?
Yeah, you said building the pavilion, the concrete. Will there be water, electric, lighting, anything else like that? Just the pavilion building and just the...
There's a concrete pad underneath the pavilion, and then there are going to be some concrete walkways that will connect the trail that's out there to the new restroom, and then from the new restroom to the parking lot. So there are some sidewalks that will connect that pad to kind of everything, but there's no water, electric, any of that.
Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, Mrs. Reardon, none of the pavilions have electricity
That's
or
correct.
water.
Yep.
None of our pavilions do. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Reardon? Seeing none, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the East Park Pavilion install and concrete work, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the East Park Pavilion project. This project is part of the Park and Rec Master Plan and will be paid with 2016 0.50% income tax fund, issue 6. Okay, excuse me, and we're also going to advertise for bids and enter into a contract. Emergency clause is requested due to the construction scheduling. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Serra and second by Mrs. Keys. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the matter of the consideration of the purchase of 10, I can't pronounce it, Evolis XL solar-powered 28 by 28 radar speed signs at the cost of $5,490 for 2 at a total cost of $27,495 for 10 signs. This was referred by Councilman Jesse, and he's not here. Mr. Brubaker, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was involved in this discussion with Mr. Jesse, Chief Whiteley, as well as the engineer's office. What he's proposing, as we know, we have these signs that we put up that are mobile signs, and we get a lot of requests from residents and from council members to put these signs up. These signs are a little less expensive, but they are also permanent signs. What will need to be added if this committee so desires, we would need to take the amount when Mr. Jesse put this request in. We did not have the pole cost, and I was given that cost here this evening. So if this committee were to pass it on to finance, the amount would be $39,495 for the posts. But with that being said, the idea is to put these posts, Mr. Jesse had an idea of putting these posts in some of our high traffic areas that we get a lot of complaints on. Again, they will be on a permanent post operated by solar. He did talk to Mr. Pileski, and between the police levy issue 6, there would be funding available for that, and then finance would determine what funds to pull that from.
Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. So if I understood you correctly, the signs themselves are $27,495, and the poles are an additional $39,000.
No, excuse me, they're additional $12,000.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
For the total cost.
The total cost would be $39,495. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mrs. Keys, I'm sorry, Mrs. Keys.
Through you, Madam Chair, how will you determine, like, exactly where the signs will go, and can we make requests?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that we would take requests from council members through the engineers department. That I'm sure they have some key areas that, as well as the police department. So between engineering, city council, and the police, we would come up with those locations.
Thank you.
And I know that these are going to be permanent, so council members can still request the mobile signs in different locations.
Madam Chairman, that is correct.
And I wish that just putting a sign up would make a difference, but we all know that it probably won't.
Yeah.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting a lot of calls from residents about the speeders down their streets. I had some guy almost run me off the road the other day. Something has to be done. Mr. Sarah.
You covered it, thank you.
I'm sorry?
You covered it, thank you. I was going to
Thank
ask
you.
the same question.
Are there any other questions from anyone on the committee? Mr. Tollett.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, Mr. Jesse contacted myself also, and as I understand it, Police Department has made a few recommendations, places, high traffic areas, places like Gulf Road, Abbey Road, I believe maybe Cleveland Street, some of the heavier traffic areas that they know if they can slow that down, then some of the side streets stay down as well. So I'm sure the police department will have a few updates for that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tollett. Mr. Oswald, did you have a question?
And I wasn't in that conversation. And the permanent, I like the signs being mobile, because when you have certain areas, you can move them around. But, you know, when you put it up permanent, is somebody just going to get complacent to say that they're always there? Is it going to be really good having them permanent, better than having them where we can change them around?
Madam Chairman, through you, the recommendation from the police department, and I know Mr. Schneider will speak to that, was for permanent, but what that also does by putting the permanent ones up, it gives us more flexibility for more locations for the temporaries, because the portable ones tend to find themselves in our residential neighborhoods. That's where I get the most of the calls, your side streets, and this will allow us to put those there and get them out off the main highways, main road areas. But, Madam Chair, I'll defer to Mr. Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When we say permanent, it has what's called an auger base, so you actually screw it into the ground. I guess you could say it's semi-permanent. We could move it if we had to. It would take a lot of work to move it, but we could. One of the things we were thinking when we when we discussed this, is it's kind of like a pilot program to see how they work, to put some permanent ones up and see how well it works. And over time, we'll see if it makes a big difference. It is the problematic areas, as the service director said. You know, we get the university all the time, the Chestnut Ridge, the South Abbey, the Gulf Road. There's certain areas we get all the time that we hear about speeding that we're going to try to monitor to see if it actually helps by having a permanent sign up there. So that was kind of the intent of how we're doing this. And then we still have the mobile ones that move out in other various areas.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the Evolus XL solar-powered radar speed signs, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement for the purchase of 10 28 by 28 radar speed signs. The cost is $5,499 for 2 signs at a total cost of $27,495 for 10. Funds to be paid from is to be determined. The pole cost is $12,000 for a total cost of $39,495. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
It was moved by Mr. Sarah and second by Mrs. Keys. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to advertise for and award a contract for additional street resurfacing projects throughout the city. Engineer Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We know how council loves to have their street resurfaced. So we received over over the past year, obviously, requests in certain areas and some areas, and I know some of these are on the list, are already on the street resurfacing list that we evaluated and we'd like to move forward with. And these are bigger streets, which have a tendency to eat up a lot of the council person's money in their ward. And, I did talk with the finance director, and there were additional funds that were unappropriated in issue 6 still. We were hoping, I know there's a lot of things going on with issue 6 money, but we were hoping to move forward and do some additional streets with council's approval, obviously. And these are some major streets that they do have, as you can see, some pretty large price tags to some of them.
So, first of all, you all know how I feel about residential streets. It's my thing. I love when we are able to do streets, okay? I get excited about it. What I'm not excited about here is that council was not asked to participate in this decision. That's what we do. As ward council members, we decide what streets we feel need to be done in our ward. That's what we do every year, and I think we do it very well. And I think we've been good stewards of issue 6 funds. So, having said that, I'm going to ask okay, so you said issue 6, but we've already used our allotment of street funds for issue 6, correct?
For this year, we used what we had budgeted, yes.
Okay. And Mrs. Keys, I saw your hand up, and I'll get to you in a moment. So, in consideration, why were not our alternates or some of the streets that are ranked higher, why were not some of those streets selected?
I will tell you that we are still going through the bid process for the original 1.7 million that was allocated for in the budget. We are still going through the bid process. We opened the first set of bids up. I believe we have about 700,000 in the first phase. I can't remember which streets they all are. We try to cut it in half. So we do think we're going to have some money left over. So we will get to a lot of the alternates as part of that, at least judging off the first phase that was opened up right now. But I won't know the final number until we open up the second phase, which will be in about 2 weeks.
Okay. Mrs. Keys?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I guess my main concern is that our alternates won't get done. And, you know, our residents have seen that they're on the alternate list and are really, you know, pushing to have that happen. So if they see that their street's not going to get done because of some of these new streets, I mean, I realize they need to be done, but my phone's going to be ringing. I think we need to do the alternates before we start a new list. That's just my say.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Key. Mr. Brubaker?
Yes, Madam Chair, the mayor is out of town this week, but I will say this, the intent of the mayor was to just get this before the committee. These were streets that were brought to his attention. There was no intent or desire from the mayor to take away from any of the approved streets that are on the initial list, as well as the alternate list, to take money away from any of those. This would have been an additional streets as well as additional monies appropriated. So it would not have taken away from anything council had already approved. But he did want to put that out there for consideration, and if council chooses to go a different direction, he was fine with that. But he felt it was brought to his attention, he should bring it to council's attention.
Well, I'm just gonna say, if we have an extra $765,000 to spend, I'm sure that we can find somewhere to spend it. Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm in total agreement. I mean, I don't know if there's worse streets within our wards that we couldn't get on the list because we didn't have any more money than what these are. I would at least like a chance to be able to drive them and find out, you know, because I know I'm still well behind some of the other wards, and I'd love to get that caught up. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mrs. Simmons? Mr. Snyder?
I believe definitely Fuller Road was a 1. I believe Hamilton and Washington were either 1.5 or 2, and Second Street actually wasn't on the list, but if it was ranked, it would probably be a 1.
That I agree with.
Mr. Oswald, I'm going to ask you, most of these appear to be in the 4th Ward. What is your opinion?
I've been wanting to get Hamilton done because that's all concrete and it's broken up and it's in really bad shape. That's when I was trying to get the concrete part of it fixed. As far as Hamilton, is it the circle or where exactly on Hamilton?
I believe the Hamilton Circle concrete repairs are already in the street resurfacing.
Okay.
This portion would be from Glenwood to
Washington.
St. Clair.
Oh,
And Washington Avenue, but
okay.
yeah, essentially.
Okay, and what was the other one in the ward?
Washington Avenue.
Washington Avenue.
From Broad Street to Harrison. From Broad to Harrison.
Yeah.
And the Elywood parking lot.
Elywood parking lot.
While Mr. Oswald is thinking, Mr. Snyder, if we choose not to do these streets this year, will there be money available to do them next year?
For certain, I mean, we'll have the issue 6 funds next year, providing that's what council elects to do. We could apply for some of them through Ohio Public Works as well. I know tonight we have Ohio Public Works for next year's streets to be considered, and I do have a small list for there, and I could move some of those on there, all of them on there. It's really at council's discretion. I do know, you know, when you do Ohio Public Works projects, you usually want larger streets, and I know Second Street would definitely be a good candidate. Fuller Road would definitely be a good candidate. Washington Avenue, it would, I think, be a pretty good candidate, maybe not as high as the other 2, but without a doubt, I mean, we could move to Ohio Public Works and apply, but once again, with Ohio Public Works, we don't control which ones they select. It's done by a ranking system through the county, and so we do submit a number of streets, and but we'll know by December. So come next year, we will know which ones have made it on next year's Ohio Public Works versus.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Bruni?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Elywood parking lot, Isn't that, with being part of Cascade, isn't that part of the Metro Parks' responsibility at this point? I'm just curious.
It's my understanding that the parking lots are our responsibility to work with them on, and I did talk to the finance director about that, and he remembers hearing something. I haven't actually seen, but it was my understanding that it was part of the city's responsibility to help with those type of improvements because we still own the property. But
And
I think, I always thought it was the newer stuff that they were going to take care of, and we were more so on some of the existing items.
And that might be, if you don't know definitively, I certainly don't. I'd rather, double check that agreement before we take responsibility for something that wouldn't be our obligation otherwise, especially when issue 6 funds are so limited as they are.
Thank you, Mr. Brunet. Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's what I was going to ask, was Elywood part of the Parks Department? I hadn't really thought about the Metro Parks, but is there any money out of any of the issue 6 parks money to take care of that?
Sorry, thank you, through you, Chair. Not this year, but it is something that we could look at for next year.
Thank you, Mrs. Reardon. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I had a chance to think about this, and I know I've had a few calls on Washington Avenue from East Broad to Harrison. And I basically have had them just go out and patch. And when I drive down that road, and I don't think, it's not perfect, but as compared to some of these others, I think like that Hamilton, I would do definitely, but if there was a better place to use that Washington Avenue right now, and they're still doing a lot of traffic, I think, because of, the building being knocked down. So I might think about waiting on that. I don't think it's as important, and that's a good chunk of money. But yeah, like I says, when we all drive through our streets, and we know which ones are really bad and which ones, we could patch for a little bit, I think that's one of them. So I'm sorry to all you people on Washington Avenue, but there's some that are really in worse shape. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Mrs. Davis, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the conversation that's going on at this time, and I do agree with you all that we should have had a chance and an opportunity to weigh in on it since we have extra issue 6 money that all of a sudden come unfound. And I would, I have like West River and all these streets that could be come from the county or wherever they have to submit. But I would appreciate it that we have a chance to look at the streets before and make a decision for our own wards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Are there any other questions and or comments? So we have a couple of options. I am not in favor of moving forward with this. As I said, as ward council people, what we do is pick our streets. So, and I'm not disputing that these streets need to be done. These are high dollar amounts. These are very expensive streets. We don't normally get streets done that are this much money. So I think it's not fair to our wards that we're spending that kind of money. So having said that, we can either vote it down if that is so the desire of this committee. We can table it until we get more information. So I'm going to ask, what is the pleasure of this committee? Mr. Sarah.
Through you, Madam Chair, personally, I would recommend tabling it until we at least have a chance to drive these and maybe submit some alternatives to this. Also, maybe by then we will find out if our alternate streets from the original list are going to be done.
Are we in agreement with that? Then this agenda item will be tabled until Mr. Schneider, when do you think we might have that information?
For phase 2, we should know in 2 weeks. It went out for bid this week, so 2 weeks we should have an idea what those.
Okay, so we will table this until the next utilities. Is that okay with you, Mr. Tillett for Finance? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor, is authorizing the mayor to advertise for and award a contract for the construction of a pedestrian bridge sidewalk on Fuller Road over the bridge ditch. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've received a number of complaints over the years on Fuller Road because of lack of sidewalks. And one of the reasons why one area doesn't have sidewalks is because we actually have a culvert or a ditch that goes through there. In order to go across it, we would need to build some sort of structure because it is in a wetlands technically. So to build in the ditch, we could be impacting wetlands and things of that nature. It is a couple hundred feet west of east of Middle Avenue. I'm trying to think of the name of the street. It's right next to. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is a ditch there. There is a bridge actually you go over when you go down Fuller Road. It's on the north side, and it's there. On one side of the ditch you have, I believe it's a retirement building. It's about 4 or 5 story building.
R.J. Gordon Manor? Okay.
And I think it's Linwood is the one directly to the west and nearest street. So between the two, there is no sidewalk on that side of the road. There's no way for them to even cross the road to the sidewalk on the other side of the road at that point. So one of the things we were looking at, and even we were thinking, well, if we're going to put in a sidewalk there of some sort, we're going to make it so that it's actually going to be bike friendly. So it's going to be more of a pedestrian bridge. So it's going to be 10 feet wide. It will hopefully in the future lead into a bike path that, as you know, we're constructing bike paths right now within South Park right now, and some of those are going to come out to Fuller Road, and hopefully in the future we'll extend it up Fuller Road and it'll cross this area. And right now, going across this little bridge, there's a sidewalk on the south side, but not on the north side. And the sidewalk on the south side is even, there's issues with that we would take care of with this bridge too. But in order to get across it, we basically say we're building a bridge. It's not.
So when you say a bridge, it's not a huge bridge. It'll just be something over the ditch.
Yes, and it's like what you would see in a park setting, just like the bridges that are built down in Cascade Park. It would be a metal bridge on the sides, and more than likely will be a concrete deck for longevity reasons. But I know it's an expensive sidewalk, but it's one of those things to be able to get people to get across with bikes and things of that nature. This is the proper way of going.
Okay. So right now there's nothing
on the north side.
On the north side. Okay. No. Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Madam Chair, just I guess clarification from my mind. You're talking about the sidewalk not crossing the road, just crossing the ditch.
Correct.
Thank you.
It would be built separate from the bridge that's there.
Mrs. Keys?
Through you, Madam Chair, and forgive me if I missed this, but where are the funds coming from?
We did not have this in the budget. The intent was to talk to finance department and use the issue 6 funds that were unappropriate at this time.
Thank you.
Mrs. Simmons? Turn your mic on, please. Say that again, please.
Sorry. Okay, I know where it is, and it's right by R.J. Gordon Manor. Mm-hmm. And it really, like he said, there's no sidewalk on the other side. And I'm just fearful of a child falling in that ditch or whatever. But, it's right there, and there's no sidewalk, no anything. I don't know, if the funds are available, but it's something
that you feel is needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do that probably before I would do, I know Fuller Road is bad, but that's just an accident waiting to happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Simmons. Mr. Oswald?
So the, excuse me, through you, Madam Chair, would be similar to the bridge that's on Second Street that crosses the river, the one-way Something like.
Similar, yeah, just a lot smaller and not as high.
Small, okay. Approximate?
$175,000, and that includes the design because you need a structural engineer to design this as well, so.
Thank you.
I would be in agreement with Mrs. Simmons. I'd rather see, issue 6 funds go to something like that is clearly needed than streets that, anyway. Are there any other questions and or comments? Seeing none, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the construction of a pedestrian sidewalk on Fuller Road Bridge, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for and award a contract for the said project on Fuller Road. Estimated cost is $175,000. Monies have not been appropriated in the 2021 budget. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to submit applications for grants and/or loans and accept the funds, if offered, for the year 2022 from OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As we've been doing for 36 years now, we've been applying for Ohio Public Works funds to take care of roads. I do have a small list that I was going to read out, and if you wanted to move any of the other streets onto this list, just let me know. I know Fuller Road and Second Street are two really bad roads. Both would really work well with Ohio Public Works, so I would like to see them on there, but
Okay.
it's up to council. As well as I have Oberlin Elyria Road, that's in very poor condition. We have Hilliard Road, West Avenue, Barris to A Street, and Chestnut Ridge from State Route 57 to Stillwater. This is the list that I came up with through just larger roads that need repaired, that a lot of times don't have a lot of residential on them. So, and these are bigger roads, and roads that really set up well for Ohio Public Works because they have what they like to see: traffic. They like to see businesses or schools, things of that. Ohio Public Works, those type of projects really go well with them. So,
Infirmary Road was done with OPWC, right?
correct, correct. It just took a while to get.
It just took a while, but we got it. We got it. Are there any questions for Engineer Schneider? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of Ohio Public Works Commission projects, OPWC, for 2022. And this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit application for grants and/or loans and accept the funds from OPWC for 2022 projects. Emergency clauses requested due to the application deadline. And Engineer Schneider will get us that list, or should I go ahead and add it tonight?
Well, if that's the list that we are discussing, that report, the initial draft of the report said that would be submitted at the committee meeting. If that's what we're talking about,
Yeah,
and that's what everyone's agreeing to, then we should attach it to the committee report.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't type one up, but that's what was the verbal more so, was what I was looking. I can submit that to the
Okay,
clerk.
can we repeat those? Because I'd like to add those into the committee report if we can.
Sure. I would like to see Cedar, or Second Street, which is.
Hold on, John, hold on. Let Colleen get to write it. Okay, go ahead.
It's Cedar and Second Street from Broad Street to East Avenue. I'd like to see Fuller Road, Oberlin Elyria Road, Hilliard Road, West Avenue from Barris to 8th, and Chestnut Ridge from State Route 57 to Stillwater. I will point out that this is a large list. Obviously, they're not all going to get funded because typically we get between $600,000 and $700,000 a year. This is probably more of this is definitely higher than $1 million, which is a good thing because sometimes, especially when there's stimulus money and that's being talked about, sometimes they get extra funds and they go down the list and do additional streets. So it's a good year to submit more than what we typically get.
What's that one on West?
Bears, B-A-R-R-E-S.
So having added that, I'm going to reread the committee report. We have considered the matter of Ohio Public Works Commission project, OPWC, for 2022, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit applications for grants and/or loans and accept the funds from the OPWC for the 2022 project. Emergency clause is requested due to the application deadline. Here's a list of the streets. Cedar from 2nd to Broad Street East, Fuller Road, Oberlin and Elyria Road, Hilliard, West Avenue, Barris to A Street, Chestnut Ridge, Route 57 to Stillwater. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Sarah and second by Mrs. Keys. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is authorizing the mayor to advertise for and award a contract for the 2021 crack sealing project. Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Best way to protect our investment in these roads is to crack seal them. Typically, we like to crack seal them within 2 years of when they were first paved, as well as other good roads. I do not have a list in front of me, but the intent is to do a number of roads that were, like I said, recently resurfaced, as well as there's some areas on State Route 57 that we were looking at to finish up, because in the past, we've done sections and sections, and there's a small section, I believe it's between Abbey Road and East Broad Street that hasn't been crack sealed. But the intent is to go out there and just have a contractor come out and protect our recently resurfaced roads, as well as other good roads that are in good condition. So.
And this is something that we do every year? Or we
try to, yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam Chair, I know we've had discussion. We have to protect our investment. I don't know where this money's coming from, but it's well spent. I think we need to stay up on these projects so that we can get better life out of our roads, and we're not doing the whole road. So I think we need to be focused on taking care of what we have. So thank you. And I'm glad you brought this back, because I think it fell off the wayside for a while, the crack sealing, like we were doing for a while on a good program. So thank you.
Mr. Brunig.
Just want to make a comment. It looks like, and I think you did say this, Mr. Schneider, that monies have been appropriated in the budget. So you guys have already determined that that money is applicable for this. This is just authorizing the project itself. You don't have to worry about moving funds. Quick question, John. Construction season, do you need an emergency clause on this legislation to get bids out?
Typically, when you don't want to crack seal during August and July, because it's too hot, because the cracks will actually close up on some streets. You want to do it toward the fall. So I don't think it's as critical. And even though we haven't bid it out yet, it'll take time to bid it out. So no, I think under suspension of the rules is just fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions and/or comments? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the 2021 crack sealing project, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for said project. Monies have been appropriated in the 2021 permanent budget in the amount of $100,000. Sorry, excuse me. This program prolongs the life of the existing driving surfaces. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
It was moved by Mrs. Simmons and second by Mrs. Keys. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. The last item on our agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Odot to perform reactive maintenance and spot paving on State Route 10 and 20 within the city's corporation limits. Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I don't know if the law directors have received a copy of the consent legislation submitted by ODOT. But typically what this is ODOT, when they come to town and anywhere within the city limits, they're required to get permission from the city to authorize them to do some work. The areas they're looking to do work is not really going to affect us too much. I believe it's largely they're looking up by the bridge area over the railroad tracks. The city is largely responsible for the maintenance on State Route 57 by Ohio Revised Code, so it's our responsibility to maintain 57 for the most part maintenance. But there are select areas when they're involved. It deals with the bridges, so it could be West River Road Bridge, it could be the bridge over the railroad. I don't have a defined limit of what they're looking to do. It's just minor maintenance stuff that they typically come out and do that needs to be done. These are maintenance contracts that they, as you know, in the past they've done on state, or even when they resurface I-90, they get permission from us. So it's not something that's, they're not going to pave 57 at this time or Route 10 or 20. It's more of just general maintenance on their select items.
Right, I recall when they did Route 90 and they got our permission. This is something that happens regularly. Are there any questions for Mr. Schneider? Mr. Bruning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, John, on the committee report and on your application, it doesn't look like you're requesting emergency, but on the sample legislation that I see, is that for this particular project? Because there does appear to be an emergency clause on that. I just want to make it part of the committee report if that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, they did request it to have it approved, I believe, the first week of August. So yes, I believe an emergency clause would be
that is
best.
I just want to make sure the committee report reflects it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Seeing that there are no other questions or comments, can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Sarah and second by Mrs. Keys. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9 has been tabled until the August committee meeting. There are no other items to come before this. Oh, Mr. Tollett, please.
Through you, Madam Chair. I believe this question would be for Mr. Brubaker and potentially Mr. Schneider. One of our newest businesses here in town on East Bridge Street, the brewery that's open, appears to be doing very, very well. The parking lot, though, the parking situation, as it was presented to council, was to be, I think, in the doctor's offices closest to them, and now it's moved across the street, which gives me grave concern about people trafficking across East Bridge Street. Have you had any calls for a potential sidewalk or anything in that area? Do you have any update on that?
If I may, Mr. Brubaker, before you begin, I believe they fell out of favor with the doctor's office for whatever reason, and they won't allow parking in their spot.
Okay.
Mr. Brubaker?
I don't know that to not be true, but I did hear something along those lines. We have not gotten, to my knowledge, and I can check with Mr. Ballard, our Planning Commission Secretary, to see if anything was brought to him about asking for a sidewalk or a crosswalk, but I have not heard or seen any documentation relative to that.
I saw it as a safety concern in that area. I mean, the high speed, 4 lanes, and there was some concern there. It
was brought up, Madam Chair, it was brought up several years ago when they first came forward about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that anything has changed from that aspect.
Thank you.
Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Madam Chair, speaking with one of the owners over there at Unplugged, and forgive me, I can't remember his name. The deal was, in the very beginning, when they came in front of council and we discussed that very issue, that they were able to get an agreement with Spitzer to lease out part of the parking lot directly across Tannery Street. That was pre-COVID. Everything kind of changed at that point. I believe a new dentist came into play during that period, and they were not willing to give up the spots that would have been required. And so they, I think, worked something out across the street.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair, you brought up a great point, and we need to work with them, and I don't know what it would take or how much, but if you did paint some lines and put up a couple caution signs, that would just be good stewards. Is what we should be doing, and I think sooner than later, like you said, if there's a fatality. So I think it's a good idea to try to move ahead and see what we could do to do something like that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I agree with Mr. Oswald. If we can do that sooner rather than later, that'd be great. Is there anything else? Seeing nothing, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
You guys are so, you want to stay here? You guys are so like, I don't want to go home. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you so much.